January 27th, 2025. Could we have the roll call vote, or roll call, please?
Smith.
Here.
Wainwright.
Here.
Bragg.
Here.
Harvey.
Here.
Mayor Robish.
Present. We'll be voting right after the Pledge of Allegiance, all right? Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the agenda of the approval. We're going to change around the agenda tonight, so we're going to move, as advertised, we're going to move, the Board of Adjustments is going to move up to number 3, and then after the Board of Adjustments, we'll come back to public forum and our consent agenda. So with those changes, I would entertain a motion.
We would add contractual.
And we're gonna add 12.1, executive session 1-25-2, parent 4 for a contractual matter.
4.7. Under consent.
And we're gonna add 4.7, under consent agenda.
After Pauline gets all those changes made, I would move to approve it that way.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Wainwright.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Robish.
Aye. Thanks for the cover, guys. All right, the City Commission adjourns to convene as the Board of Adjustment for the following public hearing. Tonight we have 3.1, consider variance request filed by Jonathan and Callie Wachter, project 1940 Riverview Drive to build an addition of basement and main floor on the east side of home. I'm going to turn this over to our city planner, Barry Cranston.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, this is, the project address is 1940 Riverview Drive. They're requesting to just add an addition that would be 15 feet from the rear lot line. The hearing examiner did hear this and recommended approval. The building inspector also recommended approval, and myself, given the fact that in my mind it looked like without having a full-blown survey in front of me, it looked like the house might have been built too close to the lot line regardless of the setbacks. It looked like the as-built construction was probably already too close to the lot line, so I had recommended approval as well. And so, but given that, we did have some opposition to this variance, and there are people in the audience, I know today, to speak to it. So, but as staff, we did recommend approval.
Okay, all right, thank you. I see the applicants in the audience tonight. Is there anything you would like to say? We have drawings and we have footages, I guess, of your addition. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? Okay. Hearing none from them, do we have anyone in the audience that would oppose the project, would like to say anything? Would you come to the podium and state your name and address, please, for the record?
My name is Leo Brewer. My address is 1945 Valley View Court. So I live right behind the Wachters. I did submit my statements in writing. You know, at first my thought was, I want to get along with my neighbors. I appreciate my neighbors and I do want to get along with them, but they didn't have a problem with it. I'd love for those dirty trees to go. That was my first thought. But after giving it some really careful consideration and some time to think about it for myself, I have reservations, grave reservations. Basically, it's too close already, which has been alluded to now as well, but I'm not in favor of reducing distance at all. And in addition to what I submitted, a couple other things, you know, like was just stated, it's already non-conforming, so it's already too close to the lot line. I'm not really sure the comments in the hearing that it's not feasible to construct an addition to the south without substantial alterations to the core structure. I guess I'm interpreting that to me then, rather than inconveniencing the walkers to substantial alterations, we're gonna compromise the safety of the neighbors, really, and the two houses. Because it will be a permanent structure, obviously. So from a privacy perspective, this proposed variance totally derails the privacy of the current owners. And I don't know if any of you stopped by or checked it out, but I really think, again, I stated this, both owners and for my home, I think it would derogatorily affect resale value. The houses are too close already. That's my thought. And another thought I had, does this 15 feet conform to fire code or fire safety between the two homes? But,
And Gail, for the record, it does.
okay.
It does
Yeah.
meet life safety goals.
Okay. But yeah, as I stated in my written correspondence, I invested additional money in my lot purchase for the reason of larger lots, not such close neighbors, quiet neighborhoods, and I totally feel that the approval of this variance would compromise my investment here. I will like to clarify that the variance paperwork implies that there will still be trees for a barrier, even after those 3 trees are removed. And really, there won't be any trees between the houses. There'll be trees there, but it's kind of more towards the back of my garage. No barrier between the houses after those trees are removed. So I empathize with the walkers, I really do, needing additional space, but I don't feel like that should come at the cost of the entire neighborhood. Do
Okay.
you have any questions for me?
They may come up in the near future here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else want to add to this?
I just have one question.
Okay.
Lori Olson, 1925 Valley View. I live north of right next to Gail. If that house is already set back too far, and this is allowed, what will prevent, if Gail sells her home and she comes my way, is it gonna set a precedence for adding on? Or if I wanna add on to my house and go towards Gail, are you gonna have to allow it?
It's a good question. It would be taken up at the time, but yes, I
Right.
understand what you're saying.
Right,
Okay,
yeah, that's it.
okay, thank you.
So can I just follow up, Mr. Mayor? So
Yeah, yeah.
we didn't have a letter from you, so would you say that you are opposed to this then? Would that be your statement is you're opposed?
Anyone else in the audience like to discuss this? Okay, how about the commission? Do we have to get a motion before we do
I
this?
think you should have a motion on the table before you
Okay.
get
It's
into the
kind
discussion
of,
there.
kind of backwards there because you like to have the discussion before you make a motion.
I
But
agree.
I hear you.
I have a question. Do we have a chance to rebut, or did we pass our time?
Oh, yeah,
No.
no, you'll have a
No.
chance.
Okay.
You'll have a chance. Absolutely. I'll entertain a motion then, I guess.
I'm gonna make a motion to deny the request for further discussion.
I would second that.
All right. Even though we're legal but backwards, any discussion?
Or did you want to give them a chance to respond if that's what?
Well, they can respond now, or if they want to wait till they hear the discussion, I guess. It's up to the walkers, maybe they're the ones that were requesting it.
Requesting which thing, Mark?
If you want to wait for the discussion, or if you want to have something you want to say now,
Okay, that will wait.
Okay.
We'll wait for the discussion.
let's have the discussion. Anybody have anything they'd like to say?
I guess I can state why I'm taken the position that I am on this for both parties' sake. I do live in that neighborhood, and that, where Gail lives and Lori lives, they're a little bit different shaped. As the further south you go, the more irregular the lots get. And some get larger, some are rectangular and square and confined to that box. And a lot of the houses, in my opinion, of a lot of those houses that are in a rectangular or a square lot, the house takes up about as much of that buildable property as it can. Wachter's house, I would say that that'd be true on the west and the east side of your house. South, you have some room, which you may qualify that as normal backyard, if you would. I'm not trying to, I guess I'm just trying to explain my point of view on it. Your back door and Gail's back door are currently approximately 60 feet apart. Yes, you do have a patio back there. And if you cut that in your 30-foot setback in half, that's going to put it 15 feet closer to Gail's backyard. And I just think it's too close, to be quite.
Trying to block two blocks away to pick up their sandwich. Us, the same thing, they're just not gonna get into our business. So, I'm sorry to say that our fathers, our founding fathers, had a good idea. They wanted to keep the place open for the current merchants. So, I just think, as Todd says, it'll be just human nature just to park there. And the sign there right now is until 6 o'clock. Well, our business really doesn't get going until after 6. And if they have a family move in that's got 3 or 4 cars, and they got 2 or 3 apartments in there, and they take down that street and then they go around the corner. And I believe the old Mulligan's has been approved for apartments as well, right? Did you guys not do a variance for that not long ago?
Years ago, I think it's been a couple of years. but-
Well, there was no variance,
But-
they were putting apartments
Yeah,
upstairs, which
they
is,
were gonna
which
be
is
upstairs,
allowed
so-
use.
Yeah, so, it's just, for us as businessmen downtown, it's just gonna really cause us problems. I feel sorry that we don't have more places, for them to do, but right now, it's really gonna be a hindrance to our businesses. So I stand in, opposition, to this, and I hope that you agree with me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I think.
Yes.
Just, oh, sorry, go ahead. Apologize.
Hello, Amy
I thought you
Gable
were
here
just
at the corner.
supporting Steve.
I also agree with the parking issue. I think residential parking is very different than business parking. Whereas we come and go, or are we there to stay all night? You know, that takes up a lot of time. I know that Dakota Plaza has some restrictions about their tenants parking around the building during certain hours, but, you know, it's often violated. So, my question is, so these apartments, 3 units, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So are these 3 units where people from the church are going to live in them?
That was gonna be one of my questions too, but I don't know.
I don't know that.
So then my question is, these people who are living in these apartments, do they pay rent
I believe so. I believe that's the intent.
to the nonprofit church?
I don't,
If a church operates, they're only tax-free or nonprofit in the church space. So the fact that this is a church owning this property, they would still behave just the
They would
same
be
in that
taxed,
property.
yes.
They would be taxed. So the fact that they're a church entity is kind of immaterial to this, because they would have to operate this one just like any other four.
So then they would be
they would be
expected to
taxable.
pay
That's
income
correct.
tax and property tax?
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that clears up
On
some
It's
the-
things.
only if they were
Apartments.
operating any of the space as a church, which is a whole separate
Yeah, right.
conditional use that's not what they're
Apartments
asking
they
for
have
here.
to,
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I think Todd and Steve mentioned a lot of good comments, and I think you guys have a lot to consider.
And I think the biggest thing is that they are allowed to put apartments upstairs in any downtown building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We are just here to decide if we allow them to put one in the back half of the.
Main floor.
Main floor.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
That was gonna be my main question, was I think the parking is the toughest nut to crack, and I can see why that's super important to all you guys. My question is, you know, without us approving anything, even if we deny it, they could still move forward and put 2 apartments upstairs, and then they could put multiple commercial tenants on the first floor. So parking, you know, they have the right to put stuff in, so really what we're talking about, as Sean just said, is the difference of having 1 extra apartment. But, you know, other than that, all of the parking from everything else they could do there could still be an impact for you guys. So that would be my biggest question is, are we saying we just hope it stays empty and is a blight and never gets filled? Or if people are gonna go in there, it's gonna impact whether it's a jewelry store or whether it's an apartment, people are gonna park in those spaces right in front of your establishments.
But Rich, during business hours, till 6 o'clock, that impacts him. After 6 o'clock impacts me. So when you got overnight vehicles there, that takes that spot all night long, and for him, if it's during the day, you can't pick up their sandwiches.
And I appreciate what you just said too, that residential parking is different than commercial parking. That is an important piece to know.
anybody else have anything to add? I would have one question for the applicants, in which Amy brought up. And maybe you can't answer this right now, but if you have an apartment on the main floor, is that, I'm gonna say, some of your church people? Or is that, because if you have your church, if you remain this open and you have someone else in the back, they can't use that front alley, they can't use that front door access because they have nothing to do with the church or nothing to do with your business that's in there at the time. So there's only one access.
That's
in the
why
back.
we would require, we'd want to require a design plan, a plan by a design professional to make sure that life safety codes,
But I just
that
want
they
to be
do
clear,
meet.
this organization is not planning to utilize this for a church at all.
That is what I've been
To me,
told.
my understanding, and that's something we can ask
Yeah.
them for clarification, but that was what my understanding from their note, that they have a church at a different facility.
Right.
Again, that, the ownership body should be immaterial to this,
Right.
because
Yeah.
they need to operate this the
Yes.
same way it would be if you bought it or I bought it.
So-
I don't, you know,
So then my question wouldn't necessarily concern a church. If their apartment is part of the business in the front, they can use that access. If that has nothing to do with that business, they don't have access to the front. They only have access to the back
well,
door.
I mean, again, as Ted said, who knows? Currently, the way
Yeah, I
it's
know.
constructed, there is a
Yeah.
public hallway that runs the length of the building. And
One
then-
access though, is all.
No, there's an access on the front and back and a hallway that connects.
Okay.
So my thought is we can't, unfortunately, we can't change where people park. That's the unfortunate part, whether it's a business or whether it's residential. Residential is approved on the second floor, that's not a question here. The reason I'm in opposition to this is because I don't wanna eat up downtown buildings and that could be potential business possibilities with residential space. And that is why I'm opposed with this. I don't wanna eat up main floor, commercial building space with residential space.
Anything else? I just wanna make sure they don't have anything else to say, cause they're talking about it. We okay? Everything's okay? All right, roll call vote, please. We have a vote to, the motion is to deny the variance request. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Robish.
Aye.
So did
Thank you
you
all.
guys understand that? So the motion on the floor was to deny the request to put an apartment on the main floor. Okay, so they have denied your request to put the apartment on the main floor. However, you can come in and get a building permit with a plan to do apartments on the second floor. Okay, so make sure you understand that. So it's just the first floor you can't.
Thank you all for coming, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, number 4, the Board of Adjustment adjourns to reconvene as the City Commission. Moving on to public forum. Public forum is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and address for the record. Anyone here for public forum? If not, I think Commissioner Harvey has something for for public forum.
Yep, I just wanted to put out a quick note that starting tomorrow at 9 AM, Third Street intersection will be closed to east-west traffic. They're gonna start installing the traffic signals there. Dakota Avenue, north and south, will remain open with some periodic flagging. And they will be working through this as long as it takes, and we'll get it figured out. They knocked out, Fourth Street intersection, took them a little time. They got a lot of wiring to do and a lot of poles to put up, but as soon as they can get it back open, they will.
Please drive careful through there. 'Cause
Yes,
there was
please drive careful.
There were some close calls there.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda matters appearing on the consent agenda are expected to be non-controversial and will be acted upon by the commission at one time without discussion unless a member of the commission requests an opportunity to address any given item. Items removed from the consent agenda will be discussed at the beginning of the formal items. And tonight our consent agenda consists of 6.1 minutes of January 13, 2025 and January 20, 2025. 6.2 fuel quotes for city departments. 6.3 consider property tax abatement elderly freeze for Melvin and Janice Dosh. And 6.4 payment of the bills. 6.5 we have number 1, accept the voluntary retirement resignation of Lee Smith from the Water and Sewer Maintenance 2 effective January 24th, 2025. And I will say, it's written on here, so I know Lee's been here over 33 years. Lee was here when I started, and I want to thank Lee for his years of service and wish him the best of luck in his retirement. Number 2, post internally and advertise if needed for a waste sewer maintenance uncertified position. Number 3, accept the transfer of Andrea Rietfeld from the police sergeant to detective sergeant for the Huron Police Department effective February 9th, 2025 with a 45-day probationary period. And this is a lateral transfer with no pay increase. Number 4, post internally in the police department for police sergeant and police officer positions. Number 5, adjustment to police sergeant Brian Reff's 2025 hourly wage to grade 20, step A at $33.72 per hour, and trainer step at a grade 20, step B, $34.40 per hour. Number 6, accept the voluntary resignation of Brittany Lair, accounting technician from the Finance Department, effective January 24, 2025. And post internally and advertise if needed for an accounting technician position in the Finance Department. And finally, for the part-time, hire Noah Apple as a volunteer firefighter effective January 6, 2025, contingent on completing the city physical. And I want to thank Noah for coming on board, and I will say again, just because we added one doesn't mean we don't have room. We need a lot of firefighters, and volunteers are great. That's our consent agenda, I think.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Roberts.
Aye.
Routine.
Who are
Sorry.
you?
Allowed to continue.
Who are you? Bid quote items. 7.1, consider specification, authorize addendums and deem necessary by the city engineer and set the bid opening for 2 p.m. on February 11th, 2025 for bid number 2025-20 a lease of hayland. And before you get started, Engineer Runge, I'm just gonna say you're gonna take 7, 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I'm out of breath. All right? Thank you.
I can do that, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, 7.1 there. This is just, we're going out to bid for the lease of the haylands around the city. They would include the wastewater treatment plant area, the well field area. There is a west landfill. There are a couple areas around the 4th Street, which would include like the old Dakota Port property, Gibbs Park, and then Stony Run. These come up every 5 years. We do a 5-year term on this, so we're up on that, and we're looking to go out for bid on this. So recommend approval for that.
A motion to approve?
Second.
Any questions? Yes.
So is this one person bids all of the hayland?
You can bid whatever parcel. We have them broken up into separate parcels.
Okay.
And you can bid whatever parcel you want, and then we go with the, in this case, the highest bid versus the lowest bid on most of our projects, right? So we go with the highest bid for that parcel. So you,
Okay.
yep, you can bid on all parcels or just one parcel.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just point of clarification, Brett, maybe Commissioner Bragg wants to speak to this. The hayland for the airport, that's a separate deal controlled by the airport board, correct?
That is correct. That is not included in this. If we were asked to bid that out, we would need to add that or do that separately.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is.
Just wanted to
There's
clarify.
a separate lease term for that one.
Okay.
That's correct, thank you.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Bublish.
Aye. Go ahead, Brett, 7.2.
All right, Mayor, thank you. Consider request for bid of 2025-02 street milling and overlay. And I'd like to add to that, authorize addendums as deemed necessary by the city engineer and set the bid opening for 2:00 p.m. on February 18th, 2025. So this is the annual street milling and overlay project. This year, a lot of times this work follows the water main improvements that we did from the prior year. That'll be part of this. We also have included 403rd Avenue, which is from Dakota Provisions to Daypro. We're also bidding that as a separate schedule on this. That was an agreement that we had prior with Dakota Provisions at one point that we would be paving that road. So we're following through on that as part of this project and bidding through that. So we recommend, the budget actually, excuse me, the total budget for the project is $1,270,000. So we recommend proceeding with bid.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? I have one for you, Brett. This is for the year, do we oftentimes, or not very often, do we add, every once in a while, just add a strip someplace if we see a problem?
Yes. So depending on how the bids come in, because oil prices go up or down, which affects the asphalt price. And last year, for instance, the bids came in lower than anticipated. We had more budget available, so we actually added several blocks last year and grabbed the next items, areas that were needing repair, right? Same would go for this. We like to fully maximize that budget. We don't leave anything
Okay.
there on street mill and overlay. I think the public would agree that as much as we can get done every year, let's go for it, right? So, yes, if there's a street that falls apart on us this winter and we just need to add it and we have to add reserves, we would come to you
Yep.
and run that through the commission, and that would be your approval to pull additional money out of reserves to
Okay.
do that.
And then I know most of the time, maybe it's later in the spring, you'll bring us a list or
Which one?
color-coded, maybe?
Yep, so as part of this bid, which it might not have made it on the agenda packet, but as part of the bid though, there is a color-coded sheet that shows the streets that would be milled and overlaid. And this year, the project will be broken up into spring work and fall work.
Mhm.
Last year, we didn't have any fall work. This coming year, just the way of schedules and how things work, we do have some portions of the project that have to be done, wait to be done in the fall.
Yep.
So, and that's color coded accordingly, and that will be on the city website too.
Okay.
Do you know when it's on the agenda to do that strip in front of the high school and middle school? Do you have any idea? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yep, it is on,
But that's so
it is
wrong,
on the
I just
list.
asked.
Underneath there, I believe, is some asbestos cement pipe that we were looking at, trying to resolve, and it's a concrete street portion there, right?
Yeah.
So it's not your typical mill and overlay with asphalt necessarily. We were looking at avenues there. We did discuss this, last year, I believe, and we were pulling it forward. It was later, but I think we're pulling it in the next 2 years here. We just, yeah. It's very in the near future. I don't know the year off the top of my head here, but we do know that is a tough area, tough
Yeah,
spot.
that's pretty rough, that's why I had to ask.
Yep.
We all hear about that one.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most driven streets during the school year.
For sure,
Yeah.
certainly. We are bringing that one forward.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Just one quick question. When we first talked about that Daypro Road, we were gonna try and run that with our paver. What was the change here to that?
Our street department felt like it was more than they could chew, I guess, is probably the best way to put that. So we made an agreement with the street department that if they use the paver to patch where we've cut the street for water main replacement, so we can do a better patch job, if you will, we'll work through this and make it work, you know. So it was just a little more than they felt they could handle.
Perfect.
With that.
Makes sense, thank you.
And to their point, I understand that that's a quicker mainline paving type job you're doing there, right? And so you do have to be on that faster with a roller. We don't actually have a roller that's probably big enough, right? So we would have to rent like a steel face roller to try to be able to keep up, or else we could end up with compaction or density issues with that asphalt. So maybe, and we run like 3 trucks, right? This is a larger project at about 1,800 ton just for this road. So it'd be tougher to keep up with those trucks. So it'd be stopping, starting each day. Whoever bids this will likely come in and knock it out in 2 days, basically.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, Brett, for clarification, that's the north-south or east-west?
North-south.
Street? North-south, between
And it-
DB plant and the Dave Pro.
Correct, and it goes right by our new wastewater treatment facility, which is also the advantage of doing that now. That construction is done, and we will have better access, if you will, to our plant.
All right, roll call vote on that one.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrich.
Aye.
Brett.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Roberts.
Aye. Brett, 7.3.
Thank you, Mayor. Consider pay request number 8 for the 2024-08 sewer main lining project with HK Solutions Group in the amount of $273,432.74. This is just a progress payment. HK Solutions continues to clean and line sewers through winter here. It has slowed the last few weeks where we hit that super cold spell. Their truck froze up on them a couple times, and they weren't able to get the things done they were planning, and we welcome to South Dakota weather. So, but they are continuing to make progress, and they're about to the 50% stage at this point. We recommend proceeding with this payment.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions on that? Roll call the vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrich.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Roberts.
Aye. And 7.4, the water study.
Thank you, Mayor. Consider water and wastewater rate study update agreement. So we received an agreement from Banner Associates to update the water and wastewater rate study for an hourly not to exceed amount of $39,500. We budgeted $45,000 for this. Banner completed the original study back in 2020, which provided us with a recipe for rates through 2025. This will carry us with how to look at rates moving forward up to 2030. and reevaluate, it includes the cost of service analysis, right? So whoever's using the facilities pays for those facilities with their rates, so.
Good. Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other any questions for Brett on that? Yes, Commissioner Brett.
I'm assuming, I mean, our 5-year study, I assume that's kind of the standard. Is there such a thing, I mean, can we ask somebody to do a 7-year study, or just so that we get more bang for our buck and maybe don't have to do these as often? I mean, obviously, that's not gonna give the same quality. Do you know of other communities, if anybody's ever pushed longer than 5 years, or if that's kind of the?
They typically don't go longer than 5 years, just because so much changes. Even on our plan, our CIP plan, so many things changed in the 5-year time that we ran here, right? That various projects either come to fruition or don't, right? And we change that. So then that changes maybe what your expenses were, right? So it's harder to project out further than 5 years. Now, it's not saying that you couldn't do that, but what I would say, my experience in talking to other communities, is if they're not doing a 5-year, if anything, they're maybe only doing a couple year like update, right? Like say we got to 2027, we completed a big project, we're like, hey, take a quick look at this and let's see what the rates should be the next following 2 years, right? So that's what that is. One of the items I'd like to bring to light, so this seems like a large cost for a rate study when we had just did one 5 years ago. Part of the reason why there is a significant cost here is that we made a significant change to our treatment in this time frame. We put in the new wastewater treatment, the new SBRs, right? So as part of this study is they go through every step of the wastewater treatment process, figure out the removals in that process, as in what ammonia is being removed, what BOD is being removed, the solids that are being removed. And then they allocate cost to that based on the cost of running and operating the facility. And then they go further and they allocate who needs to pay for that based on what they're discharging to us. Residents, industries, right? That's how our surcharge rates are determined, correct? So with the new wastewater treatment facility now online, we will have to go through that process again of evaluating removals and basically updating that part of the spreadsheet, if you will, right? The intent would be is that we wouldn't have to do that on the next study.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
When is the next phase of our wastewater improvements? When is that slated for?
Well, I'm dragging my feet, but Rob's pushing sooner, so he wants to budget the following year, which would be 2026, for design. And then that would lead us into construction in 2027. And the next phase is the lift station, the main lift station. So all the wastewater goes across the James River and collects at the wastewater plant there on Sherman Avenue there, right? And then we have the main lift station. That's where our screening facilities and everything are, where it screens it. Then from there, there's a main lift station that pumps it further to the east, about 2 miles, right? And so that is the next phase of the project. That really doesn't change treatment, right? That's just equipment is basically beyond.
So that was gonna be my question. Can they kind of factor that in, knowing that may come online? Or are we gonna be in the same boat again, where they give us a 5-year study, but then a year in, we change our equipment and say the numbers aren't?
That doesn't change treatment. And then the cost of that project, the estimated cost of that project will be included or incorporated into this rate study.
Right.
So that we adjust rates accordingly to pay for that project.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Roll call vote.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrich.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Robish.
Aye. Thank you, Brett, for those explanations. Moving on to 9 ordinances and resolutions. Today is a 9.1 second reading of ordinance number 2268-24-11 pertaining to lot standards. We'll turn this over to City Planner Mary Cranston.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mayor. The This ordinance, as you'll recall, this is the second reading of the ordinance that changes the front footage requirement in a cul-de-sac from 100 feet to 65 feet, and that allows for those shorter footages around the curve, the bulb of a cul-de-sac, and that's the only lots that would be affected by this ordinance. And so we recommend approval.
And this is the second reading.
This is second reading.
Move to approve approval of the second reading.
Second.
Any questions before we finalize this? Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrice.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Robish.
Aye. Moving on to 9.2, this is the first reading of ordinance number 2267-23-145 pertaining to yard requirements and to set the second reading February 10th, 2025. Again, Barry Cranston.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is kind of the first reading that we've had on this ordinance, if you will.
Sorry.
Because of the fact that we did add additional language that clarified it even further, where we added the text saying, quote, 6-foot opaque, unquote, language to that fence requirement for churches that border a residential property. So, and the other portions of that ordinance called for clarification of the structure or building versus primary residential structures, because there was some ambiguity between the language in the accessory building ordinances and references to the actual primary structures.
Move to approve first reading.
Okay,
Second.
I would have one question, and I didn't bring my reading of the whole thing, but is that, when you mention churches, is it churches in residential areas or it is businesses?
This is in the R2 district.
Because-
And what will happen is that this change will then trigger a follow-up change to the R1 and the R3 and the R4 districts. But we have to take those back through the planning district before they can come before this body.
Okay, because we have dentist's office, we have
Right.
doctor's office. we
This
have-
this was simply for churches
Okay.
specifically.
Specifically, okay,
Mhm.
okay. So if eye doctor, hearing aids, whatever, wants to build a new clinic in a residential area, that would come back before,
There is language in our zoning ordinances that talk about commercial uses bordering residential uses, and those requirements, for example, for clinics, for example, that border a residential neighborhood where they are to have 6-foot opaque fencing.
okay.
So that language does exist
It
today.
does, okay,
It's just for churches it did not.
okay.
And again, this will inadvertently, no good things go unpunished. This will inadvertently trigger some changes in the future to the residential ordinances, just to make them all standard.
Okay.
So it all reads the same.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrice.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Mayor Robish.
Aye. All right, we're gonna move into a work session.
We
No,
got one more.
hey, sorry, 9.3. First reading of ordinance number 2269-18-89 pertaining to flood damage prevention, and set the second reading for February 3rd, 2025. Barry Cranston.
Yes, this is, this ordinance grew from about half of what you see in your packet today to 35 pages. It's not, when you do the actual approved copy, then it's not quite that long. It's about, I believe, 26 or 27 pages. But the biggest change in this ordinance, our ordinance was adopted, as you can see in my memo, was adopted in 2009. The biggest change is the amount of definitions they've added in order to clarify a lot of the information and their references. That was probably the biggest change. We had a lot of insertions and deletions to try to modify the ordinance to more closely mirror the national and the state regulations. And so this was modeled after an ordinance that we received from the Emergency Management Department in Pier. And so we were given a model to work from, and so this, we're trying to, as closely as we can, modify our ordinance to mirror that. There will likely be some modifications to it going forward, but this is a close, we believe, a close draft of what it will be.
Okay.
Anything further, we believe, will be just minor.
And this
You know,
again,
formatting changes and numbering changes and some of that kind of thing.
and this again is the first reading, and we're gonna have a work session right after this on this thing. So there may be some modifications that we
It's
talk about, bring up or whatever, so. I would entertain a
Yes.
motion to.
Can I just note
Yeah.
that the work session is not about this?
Yeah, it's,
It's
yeah,
the
it's
FEMA
called
Oh,
storm
shelter.
I'm sorry,
shelter.
yes, yes, same name.
Same name, yes.
Different, same church,
This is
different
flood
view.
damage prevention.
Yeah. Okay,
I'll move to approve the first reading.
Second.
any questions? Sorry about that. Thanks for the clarification.
I would add a comment to it, Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
FEMA has been impacting the nation, for that matter, but it's gotten more specific to South Dakota. They've been updating their maps, and they do that. I'm not sure what their calendar is to do that, but
It's quote periodically.
periodically, yeah. I guess my point is, in our business, dealing with mortgage lending, we're seeing an impact, the impact of that. Some properties are being taken out and they're no longer required to have flood insurance, and others are getting thrown in, so it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's
And I
definitely.
agree with the planner's comments of keeping our ordinance up to date.
Okay.
We're gonna have to budget for more blue ink.
Blue, red, green, and
It's-
purple.
Well, and one of the discussions Brett and I had today was regarding the mapping that has gone on and trying to clarify with Region 8 and with the state of South Dakota, where are we at with that final mapping? And because this ordinance does allude to the fact that we are accepting that mapping as final. And so that's one of our concerns that we've sent to our contacts is, where are we at with this? Is the mapping final now? Because I've received about 12 panels of 3x4 foot maps of flood insurance, because, and so I think it's final, but as Brett and I have talked today, we didn't really see a final letter of determination and some of those things that are typical of when you get into these processes, so we're trying to get some clarification there as well. I don't know if you wanna add anything to that, Brad?
If you go to FEMA's website right now and pull up maps for the area, they're still referencing 2009 maps. So my thought is the maps are not final yet. So they want us to push this ordinance through, FEMA's pushing, and basically accepting the new mapping, but we need to make sure the new mapping's here, because we could be referencing new maps that aren't necessarily available to the public yet.
Would it make sense then to defer this?
Not from what the
They,
direction.
they've sent us a letter stipulating a drop dead date of,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
the mayor and I got February 28th. We have until then to adopt the ordinance, so that's why Brett and I are asking for some clarification, so hopefully we'll have that within a day or two and everything will be laid out for us but we can always adjust based on what we get back from the FEMA representative.
And is it my understanding then that by adopting that, then you are considered a FEMA-approved community?
That is
or
correct.
something along the line?
That is correct.
Without that, you don't have. Correct.
Yeah, without that,
Flood
you can
insurance
lose your
ability.
flood insurance designation for your community. And then rates can go up and you can